Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the former world champion Terran in the blue. It's Micro Jackson. ByuN. Facing off against the Zerg player voted most likely to raise my blood pressure. In the red, the underling, we have SHIN. In a best of 3 Terran versus Zerg showdown between 2 players who truly believe that quantity has a quality all its own. And speaking of quantity and quality, it'd be awesome if you could smash that like button and maybe even subscribe. Help me count the algorithm. And Jimmy, what do we have?
Plus we won.
1,693 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. And I know I'm greedy, all right? I'm asking every day for a little bit more. But ByuN somehow is greedier. Game 1 slaps a command center first on the low ground, just completely trusting that there's not some crazy SHIN coming across the map with a bunch of Zerglings in order to ruin his day. And statistically, it's unlikely. But the fact these guys play each other pretty much every day that ends in Y and sometimes multiple, well, it reminds me of the Triumvirate. Now, I was about to reference Dark, but it appears SHIN is already doing so, paying tribute. He can't build a shrine to Dark, but he can use his portrait of the player ranked #1 in the world by Dark, by the way, on his hatchery. I will say SHIN is kind of like Dark's apprentice. Maybe one day he can overtake him. He has a tendency to do some crazy strategies, some early rushes, maybe making 20 Zerglings randomly. He realized he was up against the command center first, and now he's gambling. He can slip these Zerglings in while ByuN is going for maybe 2-4 Hellions or something. Unfortunately, ByuN is doing the most ByuN build out there, which is building a bunch of dudes with drugs and guns and enablers overhead with the medevac. So there's a bunch of Zerglings ready to dive in, clearly taking a off-brand scenic route here. But I think there are enough Marines to deal with this, and there's going to be a bit of warning. Should be able to take out a couple Zerglings. Goes right up the ramp. Stim isn't done. A couple SCVs making things difficult. More pulled off the line. The citizens arrest, and the sheer wall of Marines with a couple more popping out, and that was not enough damage. What did he get? 2 SCVs and 5 Marines for 20 Zerglings. The cost was too great. SHIN gambled that ByuN was going for the 1-1-1 follow-up, or he was getting even greedier. But ByuN and just having a bunch of Marines is the direct counter. Remember, the Overlord could not get in. Seeing a reactor barracks on the high ground doesn't tell you anything. You didn't know what was behind it. If ByuN was going for the more tech-oriented play, he would have hit before any starport units. It was a good idea, but it does not pan out. And losing that many potential drones early on is quite an economic hit. Those drones at this stage of the game are worth double in just a couple minutes from now. And now he's opened up an opportunity for ByuN to come across the map with the units that he's been building for a decade and a half and will continue to do so. In fact, I'm sure he's ecstatic that he's able to build a whole bunch of Marines and medevacs and have it be the real strategy in this scenario. But here we go. SHIN, only 45 drones. Kind of mediocre on a 3-base economy, but he has to build units now. He has to bring the queens together. And that's all he has for the defense. The stim is done. The first queen will be targeted. There's not enough energy. Gun down. And a second as well. And more Marines, but the meta... Get off my creep! Brenda, calm down. You're gonna activate the noise filter. I need a noise filter for you, Susan. That's hurtful. It was supposed to be. Sorry, I blacked out for... Oh, ByuN loses the first medevac full of Marines, which is about as poorly as this ever could have gone. Takes out 2 queens, but that opens up an opportunity for SHIN to spread the creep. Probably take a 4th hatchery, but he's not. He is compounding the Zergling count. He's making sure he can crush the next attack. These two, like I said, they've played each other so much. He anticipated a follow-up immediately and is just building Zerglings. He even takes down the rocks down the center, makes more of an express route. The Zerglings looking for the wraparound, and ByuN clearly not anticipating the numbers here. They don't lie, they another one! He takes it down, a second medevac, torn out of the sky, the knitting needles puncturing it to critical death, and wow, SHIN. I feel this is not SHIN kind of understanding the strategy. This is SHIN understanding ByuN. He knows that ByuN is just gonna keep sending it. And if ByuN just sat back and built his third he's building 2 more command centers, because of course he is. But ByuN has such a tendency to put his foot on the gas and never stop spending it, if you would, that SHIN is able to anticipate by building another group of Zerglings. Many Zerg players in just on the ladder, I guarantee you, after taking down that first medevac, would have gone up to like 70 drones, and then would have been in a tough situation to deal with the tank follow-up. But not SHIN. All right, looking very fragile right now as ByuN as the Cold Queen's moon. Hey, one at a time. Remember when we could fly? Not now. Not ever, but also not now. I don't. Sorry. Taking out 2 medevacs early on, the early siege tanks completely hamstrung ByuN, but Zerg does not have a lot of, especially if you're on Zerglings early, this terrestrially based economy against the Terrans, it's not going to be easy to break the base. Instead, when you're ahead, you get more ahead. And many times that means more economy. This is restricted lair space. And we don't like your kind around here. Really? 3 in the first 8 minutes of the first game? People are going to be so weirded out. Well, maybe ByuN should stop throwing. That is also a fair point. I don't know. Shut up, Lucille. I don't need to... Sorry. I'm... Oh, weird day. 3 medevacs in the first 3 attacks. This is disastrous for ByuN. He's lost every semblance of map control. He's gonna try still with the medevacs, but the creep has already spread halfway across the map. SHIN, 70 drones, so there has not been a counterattack. There has not been any economic damage to ByuN. There is no hive on the way, which means SHIN, like I mentioned, he cut into his potential economy to build these units. Now, wow, whole get together here. Classic group project. Half of them laying down tumors, the other half admiring those tumors that were laid down. 2 more factories on the way for ByuN. Kind of a bio-curious mid-game strategy here. Almost, that feels almost like a Brood War switch from my less experienced knowledge, but the switch from bio early into a mass mech Terran style to have a much more stable late game. SHIN finally building the infestation pit, but he's closing in on maxed out with Hydras, Zerglings, and Banelings. ByuN already finishing a +2 attack. Just started the armor, though, somewhat awkwardly. The Queen's already queued up the creep tumors, anticipating running over whatever Marines are left over. Forces ByuN to pick up and head towards the main. Gonna fly over the fancy turbine. And a lurker den. Hive on the way. Overlord speed. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Nidus network added on. Again, SHIN, without that sort of overwhelming economy, is not able to just run across the map and potentially win the game. Not without ByuN falling completely asleep at the wheel. But at the same time, SHIN definitely not speeding towards the late game tech. The creep spread, on the other hand, though, the constant pressure of Zerglings and Banelings. I think this is a real showing of how important it is to have that drone counter. You know? The fact that SHIN, even though he crushed the medevacs, he did not do anything to slow down ByuN's economy. ByuN has 4 bases. He's got 84 to 74 workers. So with mules, that puts him potentially ahead on income. So SHIN, without hive tech, doesn't really have the crowbar or the bunker busters he needs, somewhat literally, in order to break through. You need Vipers. You need Lurkers, Nidus, Drop, maybe even Adrenal Glands, if he's feeling spicy. The hive is done. And Adrenal Glands begins. That critical upgrade as the Zergling sprinting forward, nearly maxed out. But ByuN, the siege tank line on the high ground, will not break. I am very surprised we didn't see like 3 Vipers join production the moment he ran into those siege tanks. But SHIN is determined to make me, what I'm trying to say is like and subscribe so I can afford healthcare for my blood pressure medication. Vipers! The answer is Vipers. Whatever the question for late game Zerg, the answer is almost always Vipers, even against Ghosts. Double Nidus network is certainly one of the options as well, but Vipers can help pry everything open. Parasitic Bomb to help with anything in the air, Blinding Cloud to deny it on the ground, Abduct to kidnap those key units, sometimes even Ghosts. But SHIN is going to be leveraging an incredible economy. He's got his entire half of the map and counting. ByuN is turtled up. He's gone into his shell. And ByuN used Harden. And don't make it worse. Weird. That was a Pokemon joke. Alright. The Metapod of Terrans. I've exhausted most of my Pokemon's knowledge. Let's see if Pokemon goes to a new base. Jimmy, edit that out till we get a sponsorship. Or so we don't get sued. I'm not sure which one's more likely. Probably the second one. Meanwhile, Baneling's rolling in. The planetary fortress will melt. Another command center right nearby will also be taken down. And this is why there are zoning restrictions. Meanwhile, one Nidus in the main. Here we go. A second one as well. And ByuN suffering from success. He's maxed out, but he actually has 2 medevacs of units dropping in. And we'll be able to deal with it for now. There's a Spire back at home for SHIN. Not stalling out his tech on the ground-based army, but instead having options. Even a few Lurkers managed to pop out of the Nidus. But another double Nidus at the natural. And the siege begins. 5 command centers on the way for ByuN. Multiple Niduses for SHIN. Massive economies on both sides. Try to drop back out. Having some vertical difficulties at the moment. Both Nidus worms are taken out, and a lot of supply was dragged back, and SHIN gonna use that opportunity to move into the base down the center. Takes out a couple siege tanks. Apparently, while he's finally solved his, he was allergic to adrenal glands for many moons, but I've seen him make it in most of his late games lately. It appears Vipers are the new conspiracy theory. All right, they say that Vipers are turning the bioengineered frogs. Well, they're doing a lot. All right, I don't need to talk about the frogs, the birds, the bees, but how about the lurkers and the worms? All right, the underground options. And right now, it's looking quite difficult for ByuN to dislodge this. Lines up some shots, will eventually pick out the lurkers. And ByuN's actually the one with more money in the bank. So SHIN has to be a little careful. Usually you do this when you have 5,000 banked up, and you can leverage that economic sledgehammer to crush your opponent underneath it. But finally 3 Vipers in production. Finally the Greater Spire as well. This is not working. Right now ByuN has 15 siege tanks. He's fully transitioned from that Bio Terran to McDonald's right now. He has less bio units than he has siege tanks. That's actually too many siege tanks. But is there such a thing? Siege tanks and Vikings, and a few ghosts scattered in. Which makes the Greater Spire probably the most important building on the map right now. Because Broodlords can, well, both Corruptors to zone out the Vikings, and then Broodlords to turn the siege tanks against one another. It is so important for SHIN to recognize the magnitude of siege tanks he's dealing with, and I'm not sure he's had the opportunity to see it. But maybe he can oversee it with this many builds. He's up to 14 Overseers, that roguelike style. He has 91 drones. He has the income, but he's also lost 6,000 more resources so far. And it's just the beginning. +2 mech weapons about to complete. He's already got 3/3 on the ground, of course. SHIN with +3 melee attack and carapace. Only +1 range, but he's working on 2. Right now, ByuN has 8 orbital commands, a couple planetaries, yanks in 1 tank, gets another. The EMP off the mark. So far, being a little more methodical with picking apart the siege line, but it runs absolutely deep now. +1 flyer attack is on the way. The Broodlords can take advantage of those melee attacking carapace upgrades with the broodlings. Not that it's that big a deal, to be honest. It's a little overstated, especially since broodlings live even shorter lives than they once did. Like and subscribe for existential dread. But ByuN is locked down. And SHIN is lining up to break him. Now we have high-sec auto-track and building armor on the way. That's turret range and planetary fortress, which is the biggest turret of all. All right, that thing's almost as large as your mother. So having that extra range on the planetary certainly compounds things. And then building armor, just +2 armor across the board. Not so great against banelings, but it makes it almost unbreakable for anything else. That is a lot of siege tanks. Blinding Cloud trying to deal with it, pulls out a tank, gets a Viper sniped. There's another command center waiting to set right back down. He's got multiple backups here. He's got more CCs than a poorly formatted corporate email chain at the moment. He's not slowing down anytime soon. We're approaching 15 command centers, and that's not including the ones that he's taken out. The rocks are taken down. I don't know if there were some SCVs there that got crushed as well. Another Nidus, another one in the main. Both players with like 3K in the bank. Liberator's in production now. SCVs, there's nothing left to do in the main but pop in the Nidus worms. He's already tried 11 of them, and it's not over yet. SHIN now has 3 out of 4 corners of the map. So as time goes on, we're getting closer to the bean counter phase, and we start looking at exactly how many resources are left between them. We're still pretty far off, but ByuN has, especially ByuN has been the pro/antagonist, depending on who you ask, of so many of these sort of games. Including draws or near draws. So I must remind you, at the end of the day, in order to win a game of StarCraft 2, technically, you must destroy all your opponent's buildings. That is the only requirement. Usually players recognize that's an inevitability several minutes before it can actually happen. But we're still quite far off that point, but the siege tanks are just annihilating the front line of Lings and Banelings. The Vipers have not done enough to break through, so ByuN has established the base near the, let's call it 530 location. The SCVs take out the Changelings. Traders in their midst. 8 Corruptors in production. As the Broodlords are next on the agenda. Almost every base on the map taken, but ByuN trying to solve that. He really wants that bottom right corner. The congested setup here, making it very hard for pedestrians to move about. Vikings dragged in by the Vipers, knocked down, but the Vipers are shot out by the snipes in turn. We're going to the supreme late game. ByuN feels 2 Thors on the way as well. I think he's did he spot Corruptors? I think he did. He's building Thors, anticipating Broodlords, because what else is it gonna be? More Banelings coming in, but with Liberators. Does he not have a fusion core? 4 Thors! 4 Thors in however many moons ago, when Terrans thought that building big robots and big capital ships were the way. And they were right. So today, we honor our former professional Terrans. Innovation, TY, MVP. Maybe not bit by bit, because that was just a big Terran all-inner. But the Terrans of old, who sacrificed the meta so we could be here today. Not sure where I was going. Did he just shoot one of his own Marauders to build more Thors? Well, clearly anticipating the Broodlords. I believe he scanned some of the Corruptors, but it's kind of obvious where this is going. Once he laid off the Lurkers, the SCVs, blood for the Blood God! Mechanical skulls for the Skull of Throne. I know, pretty corny, right? The Broodlords overhead, the Queens underneath. The whole feudal hierarchy is here, but the Norse gods to contest them. Thors with their Vikings overhead, up against the player formerly known as Ragnarok, which I still think was a way cooler name, but SHIN is his name because that's his name. Wait until you find out about Lee Jae-dong. A nuclear missile is in production. The zone control option, occasionally used to win the game outright, but oh, the snipes knock the corruptors out of the sky. The rock actually just opens up a path. Who knew? Apparently SHIN. The mass broodlord, a dozen broods, couple in the main as the siege continues. Both players with 4 5k minerals and 3k gas in the bank. Another planetary just in the midst of everything. Be ripped down. Vikings hit the deck. Does he have smart servos? Yes. Still lacking in a fusion core for either Caduceus reactor, medevac energy regen, or Liberator range. But the siege continues. The creep has finally been pushed back. And no, everyone lagging. What a moment. But we do it live. You can pause and like and subscribe if you'd like. But apparently Europe going offline. So thankfully neither of these players caring too much about that. Another orbital command is taken down, but SHIN still unable to break through. This has been a remarkably even late game scenario. SHIN keeps biting off the attacks. ByuN has not been able to make any progress, but at the same time, ByuN has held very strong. He has not been pushed back except on his most outlying bases. There's no infestors to interrupt the ghosts as they line up their shots, and the broodlords are not able to hit them with the broodlings quick enough. So losing more and more here. One of the queens got out in front. Another orbital command. There's only 12 orbitals left, so he's got to be careful with those things. Nuclear launch detected. And undetected immediately as the ghost is obliterated. But the real damage is done by the Thors on the back line. 7 infestors on the way. No neural parasite, which I assume SHIN will remember when the infestors pop out. There's a few lurkers and the Nidus worms. We'll see if he adds any more nuclear missiles. 35k resources lost for SHIN to 24 for ByuN. But SHIN has mined 5,000 more gas and 12,000 more minerals. He mined a lot of that bottom right base, and he's got the top left locked down. The infestors are revealed. Neural Parasite on the Thors is a game-winning move, but there's a bunch of ghosts underneath this pure, like, there it is. Come on, SHIN. Have some foresight. I like how I've watched enough SHIN to predict exactly the thought process here, but you know what? We'll get there. Better late than never. SHIN is kind of the people's Zerg. Alright, he knows what he's supposed to do, it's just sometimes he doesn't get there. He might have thought he did. And then, oh, it's a little late. 6 more broods, 20 brood lords. Well, things slow down even further as the armies get more and more dangerous to one another. A fusion core is on the way. Advanced ballistics is going to be very important. You know what? Battle cruisers are not completely out of the question either in this stage of the game. But the idealized, this is the platonic ideal for Terran armies. Okay, 5 Thors, 13 siege tanks, 13 ghosts, half a dozen Vikings, and half a dozen medevacs, give or take. This is as good as it ever gets. 150 army supply. Working towards maxed out upgrades. The furthest off is ship weapons level 2, which is working on +2. SHIN with an optimistic ultraless cavern on the way, which is certainly one of the options. If ByuN eventually ends up with like a Viking ghost sort of army, then maybe a big ultra switch. God, the broodlord count is so damn high. But the ghost count is more than high enough to deal with it. You have 20 overseers. Okay, a dozen, but... and somehow doesn't keep them with the... ah! This is... everything happening on this screen I love. So SHIN is building a hatchery out of sensor tower range to mine 1 gas. Next to the base he's blocking with a burrowed Hydra. So that is certainly... He's slapping it together in a cave with a box of scraps. Some sort of way to gather more. He's got 6,900 minerals. He's got a pretty nice position, but he just doesn't seem to be able to break the army. I mean, this is... It doesn't get any better. Looking almost be unbreakable right now. Every time he moves forward, the ghosts line up their shots and potentially kill off another. And lining up more. Where are the Vipers? And continuing their way through. Gotta be a little careful with the broods. The fungal... Fungal? What? You said fungal? I'm here! Not now, Brent. Broodlords working their way through. The Queen's caught off to the side. EMP siege tank fire, but the Zerg starting to overrun. The siege tank count dwindling. I think an accidental cyclone. Thaddeus, the accidental cyclone. It's been a while. He might actually want to... No, he doesn't want to go cyclones. I think he misclicked the Thor. But the Broodlords, 1 infestor underneath, starting to break through. The sheer amount of Broodlords is making the difference, with enough fungals underneath to interrupt some of the snipes. Broodlord count down to 11. Thor count is down to 5. Ghost still at 11. The Queens, no! Oh my, regicide down the center. 26 SCVs dead, though. A brutal game. That is the dumbest stutter. I don't know why he was doing hold position stutter step against changelings, but you know what? Through all the fire and fury, this game continues. The fact that he's long distance, I mean, that's the kind of game we're having. ByuN is running low on gas. Now remember, neither player knows exactly how many resources the other has. And neither really wants to show how poor they are until the extreme end. I think he figured it out now, yeah? Scans. ByuN spending a couple seconds contemplating that. Ends up losing the orbital. Is he back in single digits? No. Oh, he just EMP'd. ByuN EMPs the ghost. With the ghost. I think he kind of missed the mark on it, though. The spine crawlers. Yeah, get him! Spine crawlers almost kill a ghost. Honestly, spine crawlers against fully upgraded. Wow, the Venn diagram, the spirograph of freedom, of liberation here. Like 6 liberators, half a dozen liberators. And now ByuN, inspired by SHIN's antics, gonna drop a Thor over here, and he's long distance mining one of the gas gathers. Some more changelings. ByuN is running low. Oh. Wait, did he unburrow that Hydra? I think he may have. Liberator. Going to be neural parasited, which is one of the ways to technically stun it, I guess. More spores, a Sporchard out front. The Broodlings almost killing the casual accidental cyclone. And, I mean... SHIN still has plenty of money. ByuN is running out. But he does have 160 army supply. Another nuclear missile is on the way. Bit of a Hail Mary at this point. Gonna mine some more, but slowly but quite surely, SHIN is squeezing ByuN out of the game. Back to a decent chunk of Hydra Ling underneath. There's 20 ghosts, 6 Thors, but yanks in a couple Liberators. Nothing to protect him. Yanks out another round. Only 1 remains. Lines up the shots, though. Knocks a few more broods out of the sky. And immediately drops down another round. The Spore Crawler's moving forward. What a mess. Oh. And And the infestors. Infestor Broodlord. Neural Parasite. The Broodlings rain down. He's gonna line up another volley. The Fungals are so late, but the Broodlings underneath the Banes as well. SHIN, blood in the water right now. Corruptor's over the top. Drags it through. You can hear the ghost dying dramatically because I can't see anything under this SHIN. Oh no, the Fungals! ByuN running out of supply. The Thors pounding their way through, but the Broodlord count still seems to be high enough. He still has money in the bank. The Overseers clearly spot the ghosts, but the Broodlords raining overhead and raining down the Broodlings underneath. There's just not enough left. SHIN has broken him. After over half an hour, SHIN breaks through in the technical, suffocating knockout blow. ByuN made a lot of... Well, ByuN seemed to always be on defense, but from the early aggression with the medevacs, unable to turn that into real offense. And in a remarkably pragmatic way, SHIN just closing it down. There were so many opportunities for him to go too far, dig too deep, maybe too greedily. But he tread the path, stayed the course, and held it down. Ooh, well played out of SHIN. And ByuN, the switch into mass siege tank was exciting, yet I think maybe a little optimistic, as by the time the siege tanks became relevant, the Broodlords, sometimes SHIN does look like one of, if not, okay, not the best Zerg, unless we put Cyril in a different category, in which case the best Zerg then. There's all Zergs and then Cyril. So of the non-Cyrils, SHIN kind of rotates with Solar and Raynor for that best Zerg spot. But I think part of why Cyril's in that other category is Cyril doesn't have off days. But today, clearly SHIN very much on it. Well played. As close to a textbook style. Still, quite a dramatic game. I think quite an educational one as well. The impact of committing to so many Zerglings early, very apparent, with SHIN unable to really get any aggression, but still able to hold well enough in order to follow it up. That's your lot in life as Zerg. Pun somewhat intended, though we don't speak of them. You get punched in the face repeatedly, and hopefully at some point you can punch back or strangle your opponent. But you don't really have the tools, especially until Hive Tech, to really break into a well set up or defended base. It's mostly a gamble before then. So the highest percentage play is when you're ahead to get more ahead, and SHIN doing all of that, checking off all the boxes. Adrenal glands, Vipers, Infestors, Broodlords, creep spread everywhere, huge economy. ByuN. It's been a little while since I've seen a straight up brawl like MVP versus Nest T style. And if you haven't watched that, I did a cast of the fateful 2011 BlizzCon finals. And if you want to know what Terran versus Zerg was like back in the good old days, I'm going to spoil it a little. It's Mass Ghosts versus Broodlords. Who would have thought? But there's some extra details there that are worth looking at on Shakura's Plateau. Yes. And if you recognize most of these words I'm saying, how's the back pain? MVP was a player, not a title. Though oftentimes the MVP... It is a little pretentious, but he did follow through on it. Queen, politely yet firmly, asking the Reaper to leave. Reaper does not abide, because then a Terran would have to respect social conventions, which they wouldn't be a Terran. Thinking about the creep tumors. The Reaper, thinking about the creep tumors as well. One in the main. Getting that early creep spread started, because you can't cancel the creep tumor. You don't get the energy back is the key point. So waiting a few extra seconds to make sure you can box out the Reaper is usually the play. And that is also why many Zergs avoid going for the creep tumor first, because if it gets sniped off, it's just a waste, and then you don't have the larva inject to get your economy started. Or do some sort of crazy timing, but doubtful. This time around, we got the 111 Barracks Factory Starport. I've heard it called a Destiny Cloud Fizz build, but impossible to know. A branch that can go towards any direction of the tech tree, but mostly... Get out of here. I don't... Not as enthusiastic? This game was very tiring. I ran out of energy so many times. That was the EMP. Don't be pedantic. Sorry. Dozen more drones on the way. Just enough Zerglings to keep the Hellions busy. Being chased back. SHIN doubling back. The reverse manages to drag the Hellions back home. He's going to spot it with the Overlord. Knowing that... Too much. Just watch, alright? And then... Banshee slipping around towards the main, but the Spore Crawler is perfectly timed, I think. Well, no, almost perfect. In fact, yes. Should have stuck with it. Fortunately, some of the drones deciding to wander around to the back where they're more exposed. ByuN sneaking around to the Hellions. 63 drones already for SHIN. And counting. The Hellions are just going to run by. The Queens not blocking nearly enough. Going around the wrong side. Tries to get the block for the Evo Chamber, but now the drones are locked in. Looks like he's going to burn him right back down to size. Though, the Hellions, 5 drones for half the Hellions. They were supposed to burn a nade across the countryside, but they barely made it over the county line. Now, I don't think SHIN's going to be too upset about that. ByuN setting up. Already has his 5 racks back at home. Knocks out another Hellion. The Zerglings looking for the rest. Yeah, alright. The Banshee's up to the north side, but the Queens? Don't say it. Is there an Overseer? Well, the Banshees don't have Cloak, so that kind of precludes it. The Zerglings looking for the runaround. SCV's pulled back. Reinforcing Marines are enough. Banshee's still sharking around. Going to be a mass roach play out of SHIN. With the +1 ranged attack, as well as Carapace. Banshee's clearing up some of the creep as the Queens were tied up on that right side. And when you go for roaches, usually the Queen count is significantly lower. Only 6 this time. A couple infestors to help zone things out. The roaches trying to figure out what they can do, and right now what they can do is die. Overall, ByuN doing a good job keeping both pressure and scouting information, but he hasn't done much to control the economy. As right now, SHIN is at 75 drones with a hive on the way, and his production is about to explode as they double drop on the right side. Second factory already in production. Stims into the speed zone. The Overlord take it out easily. Spots the investor on the high ground. Gonna back off and drop back out. Will keep SHIN busy yet again. And keeping those roaches and ravagers on SHIN's side of the map for as long as possible, while ByuN builds up the siege tank count, gets a second factory, is absolutely critical. He's got the Octo racks coming up, but a 4th command center's already halfway done. Banshee knocked out of the sky. Baneling nest on the way as well. As later on, when you get enough hatcheries, lings and banes are just better. Roaches are not supply efficient. You can get a lot of them early, but they're limited by the fact that you max out with an army that can be dealt with by a critical mass of siege tanks. So, they're kind of just to get out in front of things. The Marines just to ignore the roaches and ravagers, take down another hatch. But once you get enough larva production with enough economy, lings and banes take over as the best option. And that's why SHIN went with the Roaches early on, and now Lingbane, and eventually Ultralisks. Though no Adrenal Glands. SHIN. SHIN. Can't have it all. I mean, you can. He definitely can afford it. But, I don't know. He's saving that 200 for something else. One more Viper. Fourth command center, now a planetary fortress. ByuN already working. Well, he only has 2-1 on the way. Has been focusing entirely on those weapon upgrades. Still has been not no rush, but both sides macroing up. Gonna get to pretty much 200 supply before an outright engagement. There's Adrenal Glands. Out of you. 4 Ultralisks in production as well. We'll fill out the rest of the supply for SHIN. 200 will be completed, but it's still in the process of being delivered. Chitinous plating isn't done. ByuN is also going to be maxed out by the time the Ultras arrive. He has 2 factories working on a second starport, so he's got full 4-base Terran against a 4 and counting base Zerg. But the hardest part is taking those front bases. As a Zerg player, get you even closer. Oh, just the spine crawlers easily tearing through it. And all the Ultras pop out like, oh, wait a second. He can just target the hatch. The Ultra's cleaving through, but gets away. They'll expect some of us in the wreckage, brothers. Gets the hatch, gets 15 drones. And he gets away with at least 2 medevacs full of units. Another Ultra coming up, but without chitinous plating. Not that scared of all this. It looks like SHIN. Ultra's very good the moment that armor finishes. Well before there's going to be ghosts or too many liberators. But time is running thin very quickly. Already a scatter of Widow Mines at the front. A Banshee, pretty much uncontested. Uses a Fungal to deal with it. Obviously not the ideal. A couple Ultras out in front, throws out a Fungal. Mediocre. Drags in a Siege Tank. Another Ultralisk obliterated by a Widow Mine. SHIN fighting directly into the concave. It's a disaster for the Zergs. SHIN baited into the attack. And his supply... well, just look at it. 14 more drones, another base, all the Ultras, all the Infestors. I think a couple Vipers as well. Just gonna go to the healing shrine so the surviving medevacs don't have to work too hard. Unfortunately, there's an air blocker, but overall, very convenient. Minimizing the need for the mass medevac. And SHIN, he lost his economy and most of his army in a single moment. Within 30 seconds, he dropped a base and a quarter of his drones, as well as all of his Ultras. He will rebuild more, which is a bit optimistic. Well, Widow Mines will burrow. Drilling Claws is done. Big hits. 1 volley. GG. ByuN with a decisive victory. He strikes back with a well-executed set of Terran attacks. SHIN reaching for the Ultras and just kind of giving up on his bases. Clearly didn't have great long-term options there, and it'll cost him. We're all tied up 1-1. SHIN just not respecting the mobility, not able to lock down the bases. It's so hard to get a forward base on that map. I think SHIN was going for effectively a 4 base all in, which sounds a little weird, but it's kind of where you find yourself. It just didn't work out. It just... fighting directly into the concave is not a recipe for long-term success. Or short-term success. No success at all. 1-1. All tied up. Going to game 3. ByuN. Well, ByuN has played so much. I mean, SHIN as well. But ByuN has so much experience. I think he might not remember where we're at in the series. Alright, he just has his builds. I keep seeing him do the exact same cheeses on the same map in the same matchup in like back-to-back tournaments. The weekly tournaments, while he might participate, he just relies on his ByuN style. And it's carried him this far and will continue to do so. He's old enough now, in his 30s, that he's not going to change. He's going to make Marines, Marauders, and Medevacs, and maybe some Tanks or Maghosts as well to fill it in. But that is the army. That is the build. And he's sticking to it. Like and subscribe if you enjoy consistency. All right, like me begging for likes and subscribes every single time. Maybe a little bit more, a little bit better. Thing is, ByuN of now still is an order of magnitude better than the ByuN of 10 years ago. But as a matter of scale, like back in the day, watching someone micro 2 sets of medevacs on 2 different points while also doing anything else was mind-blowing. And now it's just a warm-up for Clem. Like, oh, SHIN. Gonna talk some SHIN to start off. All right, this time we'll live translate. Actually, I'm not sure how to do that. But I said I would do it because everybody doing like poor translations themselves. Yes, we're doing it live. Jimmy, edit this out so it has real commentary. Well, at least they're not doing a whole essay this time, so. Which is, you know, good. I do wonder what he said. All right, we got it. I'll eat well and go. This is too much. Ah, SHIN says this is too much. Clearly referencing Terran in general. And ByuN says he'll eat well. Which, probably some sort of trash talk meme there. But the gist of it being, SHIN, sick of dealing with all this Terran SHIN. Get off my queen! You showed him. Don't be condescending. He's not descending at all. Oh, here we go. Oh. Hi. Oh. And then laughing emoji. That's the equivalent of the Korean LOL. I know that one. I feel like every time either of these two players, especially playing against one of their regular opponents, I'm just going to need to keep the app up. Google Translate right now. Maybe there's a better one. They do have a tendency to spontaneously, mid-game, trash talk, like 4 minutes in. Most noobs keep their trash talk to the early game, but these two are clearly experienced professionals. So. Roach speed on the way. Evolution chamber as well. It's going to be the roaches again, but roach ravager timing is very common on this map. That close rush, especially now that SHIN's going to see. This is 4.5 minute layer. He's already. This is the quickest roaches. Well, not the quickest, but like it's fast. It's fast. Just like the roaches will be because of the very quick lair. Drives it back. Just a couple Hellions. So clearly angling for the Marines much quicker. ByuN has to know this is a threat. The Overseer itself is giving away the timing a little bit. The Overseer requires a lair. And if you have a lair, well... And the roaches are spotted. The fact he has a lair and already a bunch of roaches. Siege tank in production. Infestation pit on the way. I'd love to see some swarm hosts, but that's not going to happen. That's more of a rushing up towards hive. SHIN sneaking out a few more drones. I thought he might go for the big roach island. It's still on the table, but he's sneaking out enough drones to have a 3-base economy. Maybe leverage that. ByuN. 2 medevacs of Marines. Ready to move out. Just going to walk across. Wait a second. Those aren't the neighbors we wanted to see. I was promised there'd be no Zergs in this neighborhood. But who's gonna enforce it? That tank on the high ground, a little late on sieging, gonna cost SHIN, or cost ByuN even more. The Marines, though, oh, the positioning! Oh, that could have been better. Oh, it's a minor disaster here. Honestly, ByuN sieging up that tank late ends up working out for him. As SHIN, for a moment, thought he could break through it. And I think he could have. I don't know why he turned it around. He might have lost most of his roaches, but I think he could take out the army. A siege tank coming as a bit of a jump scare there, though. And now, 64 drones, 57 SCVs, but very, very importantly, combat shield is completed for the Marines. Makes it that much harder for the roaches and ravagers to take it out. Hive has begun. SHIN 67 drones going up to 69. A very nice baseline in order to get all this started. Not going all in, but instead kind of baiting ByuN into getting aggressive and forcing out an awkward position. Throws out the fungal, one very unlucky Marine. And that's it for now. Hive, halfway there. 1-1. He's getting a Hive as 1-1 is finishing for ByuN, which is remarkable. That's why I remarked on it. But an absolute speed run to Hive. One of the quickest I've seen in a real game, especially with this many units already on the field. There's a logistical limit on how quick you can get a Hive, and SHIN pushing the boundaries of it right now. Ultraless Cavern. Again, but obscenely fast. The Ultraless Rush is the play, as the drops are just dragging everything around. Gonna take out another Overlord. ByuN building up into that mass Rex. Does he already have a second factory? No. This time around, it's going to be the Octo Rex, which actually is better for SHIN. The less siege tanks to backstop or transition into Widow Mines. Well, this is still a dangerous attack. The fungal that is thrown out catches the Marines. Big catch there to stop. And the Zergling closing in. Goes for the backline tanks because he can already target the ones at the front. 3 out of 4 tanks taken out in the first wave. Will cost him a lot here. Throws out a fungal. Completely whiffs except for the medevacs. But down to a couple Ravagers and a trickle of Zerglings. The medevacs he was chasing brings the roaches back to deal with it. But that means the other double drum. ByuN bringing the supplies near even here. But the Ultraless are on the way. The elephant in the production town. Chitin is plating as well. Second factory. But still building medevacs. Has no inkling of it. There's no... He hasn't even spotted the main. So he doesn't know about the Hive, obviously. No Vipers. The fact Infestors are out gives away some of it, but I doubt he's expecting Ultras to be done already. ByuN is building a 4th command center on the gold base location, making an issue out of that whole deal. No adrenal glands for SHIN, but not too many Zerg. Well, he's building 26 more lanes, but he's currently investing in the Ultraless. ByuN about to spot them. He's already building Marauders and Siege tanks. It doesn't... that is the best option right now besides working towards Ghost. There's the scan. Actually continues going forward. Infestor targeted another one as well. But he ends up losing most of the ground army. The Ultra! What a... The SCV slaps down an Engineer. You shall not pass! And he ends up doing so anyways. Whoa, gotta be so careful. The Marines and Marauders. Chitinous plating is done, but the sheer Marauder count is so damn high. +2 armor and about to be +2 weapons. Fungal comes out, targets down another Ultra. There's more where that came from. ByuN boxed into a corner, cloven in twain by the Zerg. And almost a beautiful defense is torn apart by the Ultras. The sheer number of them this early. Another one's going to be targeted. There's not too many Zerglings underneath. One Ultra getting distracted by the juicy factory there. But ByuN is now down 50 supply. It is a disaster for him on the field. He does not have Ghosts. He does not have Liberators. He has nothing that is a more direct counter to the Ultras. The Marauders are good, but they're still vulnerable in the field, especially with infestors as part of the army. Stimming forth. The infestor is spot. Peekaboo! Pops up. The choke point here. The Midas choke. The gold minerals to hold it. ByuN has a forward force to hold the choke point because that's his best chance of actually dealing with this. The Zerglings. There is the wall off at the front, but there's that big... He could just go around. So, you know. I know it sounds crazy. Just go around. Don't do this. Corrosive Bow will force him back from the choke point, but again, that's one Ultra at a time. No Baneling speed, no Adrenal Glands means that this drop is actually getting a lot done. SHIN bringing it back. There is the Healing Shrine off the beaten path, all the way off to the left side of the map. Gonna stutter step, try to take down an Ultra, seems a bit optimistic. Wait a second, oh, he broke through the engineering base. Both upgrades are denied. And one of the last hopes of ByuN to take really cost-efficient fights, especially before Ghosts, is completely obliterated. I gotta see exactly how he did it. Like, he just built... He doesn't even have speed, and not like it matters. They do the same amount of damage. But the Banelings... Oh... Does he just decide? He decides on the engineering base. A great choice. Especially considering the circumstances. He's maxed out. The best chance for ByuN is building a 200 supply army that Zerg struggles to beat. But without the upgrades, it's almost impossible to get there. So ByuN's few advantages being whittled down to nearly none. The army supplies are dead even because ByuN has lost so many SCVs. He's building 5 Marauders at a time. The Liberators. A hope here. The income sliding towards the Zerg. The drop at the back cancels the hatchery. Venn diagram of freedom at the front. The corrosive bow will knock down one. That is a cumbersome army. The fungal, though, allows the ultras to close in. Even has another one at the back. Still stutter stepping. Gonna go back through the choke point. But the fungal holds them in place. The ultras shoving their face. Here's Ultra! Oh no. The rest of the army struggling through the traffic jam. A few Marauders actually kiting back every single Ultra. Making it... Well... The Ultras with a lot of junk in the trunk getting cleaned up by the Terrans, as the Ravagers, also known for their significant width. I can think of a few other people like that too. Shall not be named, but... Baneling speed nearly done. Adrenal Glands on the way. He remembered eventually. All right, SHIN trying to prove a point, I feel, right now. He knows. That it's going from bad to much, much worse here for ByuN. It's not getting any easier. Down 60 supply. There's nothing. He hasn't rebuilt the engineering base. There's Zerglings burrowed across the map. His medevacs are out of energy. The SCV counts in the 40s. One last attack, but the Ultra's coming in. The Infestor's underneath. Corrosive Bile thrown out. Single Liberator heading back. Wow, he's waiting for him to come to the other side of the choke point. The patience here on this Infestor is beautiful. Maybe a little too patient, actually. Oh, there it is! Surprise! Gets him from the back. The Ultras close in and just completely eviscerates the army. ByuN, a single GG. SHIN chewing right through him and will take the series 2-1. A hard-fought battle. But at the end, SHIN holds it together with Adrenal Glands and +3 seconds away from completion. A dozen Ultras. But wow, another brawl between these two. They never fail to disappoint in the series I end up casting. I'll just tell you, a little bit behind the fourth wall is For every series like this, they have like 2 series where it's 20 minutes and they just cheese each other. But they play so often. Sometimes the StarCrafts align. So, thank you for watching. I certainly hope you enjoyed, at least as much as I did. Hope it made your day just a little bit better. And if you got the means of motivation, it'd be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. So, thank you to our Mule patrons bringing in the extra minerals. Big Jake, Davin, Dole, Kate, Mario, Suit. I just still enjoyed everyone. I hope to see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.